First off, you know the Lions won again. Number one seed in the NFC. This has been a lifetime coming for me, so I just had to mention it there. But what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Good morning, Mario. Good morning, Switch fans. We're a little out of order, but that's a-okay because the Switch 2 discourse just has me discombobulated. Every morning, I wake up with dreams that Nintendo actually unveiled it, actually talked about software, and then I'm left with nope, they didn't yet. But it's coming soon, we know that. And today we got a lot of interesting stuff, including a UI leak, including Digital Foundry's comments on where they believe the Switch 2 will be after all these leaks, including some responses to Digital Foundry's comments and more. So let's definitely dive straight in. Hit that like button if you enjoy these videos and are pumped for Switch 2. I like kicking it off with an updated look at the system based on all we know. This is looking pretty nice. As you can see, it's got the orange and blue interiors with a little pinch of color. Like Tinkerbell just dropped a little color right on the innards of the joysticks, because as we saw from the side angles and the profile views, it don't look like those Joy-Con have much color on them. So this is just a potential of where they could actually put some color. It makes for a very sleek, nice looking system that I think looks very high end and also just very darn great. Like, I think this looks fantastic. If this is the Switch 2, sign me the heck up. That looks sick. That looks kind of like a futuristic Nintendo console, and it looks very, very nice. I think just the little blue and the little orange is very cool, and this as our hardware that we'd be getting in our houses, sign me the heck up. I'm super freaking excited for it. But I'm also excited for this UI discussion. Now, this was posted a couple days ago, but what adds validity to it here is in one screenshot, there is a pointer that is being used to select Mario Kart 8, so I assume the Joy-Cons may have pointer controls. And that's something we discussed heavily yesterday in our Joy-Con breakdown reveal video, where we now know the official Joy-Con, because it sure looks like there's an optical sensor, and it sure looks like there's some sort of pointer technology that's going to be incorporated, very similar to your computer mouse. So this person said this before those Joy-Con pictures were posted. That's why it adds validity. Now, they say, I have seen the Switch 2 OS. Yes, a few devs do have limited access, and I have been able to see images. First off, this OS is basically a modernized Wii U menu. It has 10 row tiles on display at once, which is a big upgrade from the original Switch. So as of course you know, flip on your Switch, it is a scroll bar that has limited icons on the screen, and it's very simplistic, it's very basic. No themes, of course, never a theme, but it does work quickly and work well. They're saying that animated backgrounds and menu music return. I only saw the dark mode, by the way, and so I assume that means themes as well as menu music, and we're going 10 row tiles on display at once. Now, I assume this means 5 on top, 5 on bottom, because if you recall, the Wii U menu was much more of a vertical menu, whereas the Switch menu is horizontal. I mean, I guess the Wii U was both. It was vertical and it was horizontal. It was just more compressed, right? So there's more icons on the screen. It was busier. It's a busier UI, and it seems like, according to this person, if you believe them, that's what they're going with. You can tint your icons to change the color of them. All black and red goes hard. Surprisingly, Vimeo is a legit application on the UI. I was skeptical of that at first, but it does seem to be real. No one was able to test any of the bottom applications outside of the eShop. Apparently it gets stuck on the loading screen. The loading screen reminds me of something from Nickelodeon. There are 6 tabs on the UI as well, so I assume you can have 60 games on the home screen at once, and because of how it's designed, you can quickly scroll through your entire library. I'm genuinely happy with the layout of the UI. It fixes all the issues when it came to finding your games. It basically solved the problem by going back to what the Wii U and 3DS did, but whatever, which is really funny. Now, I do want to point out, take this with a grain of salt, because just because they got the pointer thing correct does not necessarily mean that the rest of this is correct. We have no way to verify this. This person did not send any pictures, but it does get the brain cogs churning in terms of what they could do with the OS. And one thing that would be so Nintendo would be going backwards. A lot of people believe that the Wii U and 3DS organization on their home screens was actually much more conducive to a better experience than what the Switch provided. I think the Switch wanted to go easy peasy lemon squeezy and simplistic because it was introducing this new hybrid idea, and they kind of wanted to just be like, okay, settle down. You got a few games to pick from. It's not too complicated. We're going to do a lot of online. We're going to do hybrid. We're going to do a big eShop. And they didn't know if people could handle that. Obviously, we can all handle that. So they're going to go back to something that allows for more options and more flexibility. They say your username is displayed at the top left of the screen next to your profile picture. It doesn't look like the OS allows multiple accounts at once. So I assume there'll be a login feature. Now, this to me is probably the biggest, like, huh? Like, this is the exclamation mark that makes me think, maybe this is not real, possibly this is not real, probably they're just BSing us. Would Nintendo go to a login as opposed to a multi-user interface? Nintendo has really loved their multi-user interface. Obviously on the Switch you can have multiple profiles, and that was something that was like a big deal because it helped allow families to share the Switch together and allowed you to have, different ways of accessing different eShops if you wanted to go peruse the Australian eShop or the Japanese eShop. But Nintendo didn't like it enough because with a game such as Animal Crossing New Horizons, they required a separate Switch, a separate profile wasn't enough to have your own game save. So even though I think Nintendo will most likely stick with the multi-user approach, because they did sort of veer and say, hey, whoa, you need your own Switch, maybe this is an evolution of that, and maybe this is a way where you wouldn't need your own Switch. I think it's pretty archaic, but it does benefit Nintendo in many ways to require a separate Switch for a separate Animal Crossing island. Although maybe they did get enough pushback, they made enough money off Animal Crossing that the next Animal Crossing will just utilize a login feature rather than multiple profiles. And that is a way maybe to require you to own the game without needing a different Switch. Because, see, that's the issue, is you can have one copy of Animal Crossing, plug it in, and it's like, okay, well, everybody can use this, but they can't. They wanted to limit that. Maybe this is sort of a hybrid way of handling that. I don't know. But to me, the login feature is so Xbox and so PlayStation and so not Nintendo. We'll have to wait and see. They say that's about it. If I'm able, I will try to get images and share with the mods for verified proof, but this OS is genuinely an upgrade over the original Switch. Like I said, it looks like a modern Wii U and 3DS menu mixed with iOS and Samsung. Honestly, that sounds fine. If it is in a menu that allows me to still move through it very quickly, have much more on display, more customizability, and themes, like that's basically all I wish for. Honestly, for me personally, my biggest wish is that the eShop is better. I have suspicions that it may not be. Now let's go to Digital Foundry here. This is covered by Central Leaks. They kind of made a nice overview and a big kind of recap of what Digital Foundry thinks. If you're not familiar, Digital Foundry is sort of the best in the business when it comes to analyzing tech within video games. And they believe the most probable thing is that Switch 2 will use the Samsung 8nm node, as we have speculated here in this account, with serious implications for either performance or battery life, especially when the battery compartment looks much smaller than Steam Deck's. So basically they're saying, halt, who goes there? The battery life is going to stink. Now, I will let you know that battery life on these handheld PCs kind of always stinks, and I don't think that Nintendo is going to find some magic cure that gives it a 12-hour battery life, nor do I think it needs that. These consoles do not need that when they are in handheld mode. Nobody expects it. Nobody really had a problem with the Switch battery life. Nobody has a problem with the other portable console battery lives, even though some of them, like the ROG Ally, when you crank that thing up, are incredibly short. You just plug it in. There's plugs everywhere. It's super easy. I don't think battery life is something that really can be a negative much more, unless it's like 20 minutes. Then obviously that sucks. They say, contrary to some speculations, raw performance won't be nowhere near PS4 Pro level. Expect raw performance similar to Xbox One and original PS4. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth on how strong this Switch 2 can be, and it's very divisive and very difficult to tell, because even if we have the hardware specs, we don't know how DLSS takes advantage of that, and we don't know how Nintendo is going to be able to sort of make things and massage things in a way that gets even more oomph out of the hardware because it's their proprietary system. And if you scroll down to the bottom point right now, we'll read that next. While the news of a Samsung chip does put the Switch 2 at an efficiency disadvantage up against Steam Deck and the vast array of Windows PC handhelds out there, thanks to optimization for a fixed console specs will be the secret sauce for success, meaning because it can be optimized, because there's not all sorts of doodads and switching things around and changing settings, they're going to find a way to optimize it and make this thing purr. They also say modern tech that other consoles lack, like DLSS, will help close the gap to current-gen consoles. Expect ports of current-gen games running at 30 FPS. So even though the hardware is going to be weaker, even though the hardware is going to be PS4 level, you can't really gauge or judge it as a PS4 level console because due to DLSS, which is going to provide a bump, and due to optimization, because it's a fixed Nintendo platform, they're going to get a lot more mileage out of that tech. So even if it does clock in at a PS4, you're going to be getting much more than a PS4, which makes this so difficult to analyze, so difficult to evaluate, and so difficult to convey to other people like, oh, it's going to be as powerful as a PS4. And people are like, what? That's terrible. That's so long ago. You're like, no. They're going to do things to make sure that they get the most out of it. We really have to wait and see not only Nintendo games, but a number of third-party games to figure out and find out exactly how this is going to work and exactly where we want to be so that we end up getting a very accurate perspective of what the Switch 2 can do. And we may not know that even beyond the launch. It took a while for the Switch to put out games that were really kind of impressive, things like Doom, things like Witcher 3, and I'll remind you, Digital Foundry did say Witcher 3 couldn't run on the Switch, and then voila, they made it run on the Switch. Port studios have a way of pushing the magic button, and oftentimes they're able to get even more goo out of the jelly bits of the innards of this type of hybrid system, and we'll see where they go. I'm not worried about the Switch 2 power level at all. Digital Foundry might be a little bit down on it, but they also do acknowledge that Nintendo will be able to optimize this thing very well. Now, Necrophilippe, who is a known leaker, does not buy what Digital Foundry is putting out. He says, me watching Digital Foundry's video about what they speculate for the Switch 2's performance, I don't believe you. He believes that the Switch 2 is going to be more powerful and stronger at a base level, and then obviously utilize all of their special stuff to make things run even better. At the end of the day, for me, I don't care what the specs are. I care how the games run and play and look. If you're able to get a ton of mileage out of old hardware, so be it. That's great. If you're able to get minimal mileage out of new hardware, so be it. That's great. At the end of the day, all I care about is that the gameplay and experience is very good. If it's not very good, if it feels antiquated, it feels old, no matter where that hardware is from or what that hardware is, I'm going to be bummed. But if you're able to manipulate the hardware in special ways, if you're able to optimize, if you're able to use DLSS, I don't really care what the hardware is. I don't care what nanometers it is. I don't care who made it. I care about the gameplay and experience. And everything we've heard and everything we've seen, regardless of the arguments about the hardware itself, is that this thing is going to be impressive and that this thing is going to be able to put out really nice graphics and will be able to play many current gen games at 30 frames per second. Could you ask for more? We're getting current gen games. We're getting PS5 and Xbox Series X games on Nintendo Switch 2, and there's going to be a lot of day and date, a lot of multi-platform overlap, and you're going to be playing bigger, better, bolder franchises from third parties than you ever played on Nintendo Switch 1. That sounds great to me. I don't really care about the nuances of the hardware, even though it's interesting, and even though it's like, it's not even really a fun discussion for me. It's more like nauseating, like, is it actually going to be bad? Is it actually going to be good? I don't really care what the hardware is. Show me what you can do with that hardware. That's what we're talking about. That's the important piece of the puzzle. Now, more pieces of the puzzle have continued to pop out, and this is from Pyoro. We've discussed lately about how this week or next week feel like when Nintendo will announce this system officially. So much is leaking out, more and more, day by day. We get the Joy-Con, we get serial numbers, we get details on the specs. Hardware companies are like, or accessory companies are like, we're just going to send this stuff out there and Nintendo doesn't want to announce it. Fine, we'll just show it ourselves. So this comes from Pyoro, who basically is stating that they expect Xenoblade news this week and not a Switch 2 announcement. Pyoro, which is now EB576DCFE, says, last time due to my vagueness, people expected the Switch 2 announcement, but it turned out to be Xenoblade. I don't want to mislead y'all again. And then VegaWiz says, so we are getting something this week. And EB576DCFE Pyoro says Xenoblade. Okay, so he's not messing around. He thinks there's going to be Xenoblade news today, and that there's not going to, or this week, and that there's not going to be any Nintendo Switch 2 announcement this week. That is a-okay, and that would be fine, because that puts us at a nice January 13th Monday for next week, and they could announce this system anywhere between January 13th and January 17th, and I think that would make a lot of sense. It still feels like a great time. It still would give them 2+ months till a late March launch. It still would be well within Furukawa's, financial fiscal year window, and it would line up with like, oh crap, things are leaking out, we're getting very darn close, and people want to talk about things. At the end of the day, you know more about this system than you did last week. You know more about this system today than you did yesterday. We know a lot about where it's coming together from a performance level. We know a ton about where it's coming together from a visual controller look, color scheme level. We know about the magnetic Joy-Con. We know about the pointer. Maybe we have some new details on the UI. You can kind of take this, like I said, with a grain of salt. Do you believe this person about the Switch 2 OS? Is their pointer comment from days before the actual Switch Joy-Con leaked enough clout to have you believe that it is going to be basically a glorified, upgraded Wii U menu. And does that sound like something you would be fine to see on your Switch 2 screen when you boot it up for the first time? We're getting so close. One of these days I'm going to wake up and it's not just going to be dreams, it's going to be reality. And I can't wait to share that moment with all of you. But in the meantime, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. And until next time, SwitchForce out.